Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life After the Military, a show completely focused on veterans transitioning from military to civilian life. Our show is powered by Pivotal Moments, an organization on a mission to strengthen mental fitness for all. Go check them out at pivotalmomentsmedia.com to learn more. My name is Lee Elias, and I'm joined as always by my good friend and co-host, Howie Cohen, and we are privileged to have Michelle Penczak today. Michelle, I thought I was going to mess up your last name. I messed up your first name. That's a great way to start the show. So Michelle is the CEO and co-founder of Squared Away, a team of trusted assistants comprised of military spouses who span across the nation. In addition to Squared Away, Michelle is the founder of Saavy Spouses, a job resource site for military spouses, and Michelle Penczak Executive Assistants. These two endeavors were both a huge factor in how Squared Away was born. And previously, Michelle worked as a manager and virtual assistant at Zirtual. She lives in San Diego and works with clients from the Pacific to the Atlantic, literally sea to shining sea. Michelle, it's a pleasure to have you on Life After the Military.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It is such a pleasure.
Now, the pleasure's all ours. And I'll tell you what, Michelle, you're actually the first military spouse that we've kind of hosted here today and invited as a primary guest on the podcast. And we're really excited about it. One of the things Howie and I have been looking to do is start to showcase spouses, as that's a major part of the military journey, and not just spouses, but families in general. The children go through it too. Howie and I both know how integral spouses are to the success of any military member. I'm a spouse as well. And tell us about your family. Describe the challenges you faced and that you have to overcome as a military spouse.
Oh my goodness. So many.
Yeah, we only have an hour, by the way. I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Being a military spouse is kind of like being the glue that holds everything together, in all honesty. And not to toot the military spouse horn, but so many times our military members are off doing what they're commanded to do. So everything kind of falls on the plate of the spouse. So everything that has to do with your home, kiddos, just life in general kind of falls to, the partner in crime at that point. So we are incredibly resilient. I've literally handled everything from shipping my car to figuring out how to get my cat from North Carolina to Hawaii, which is not an easy process, mind you. So and nothing comes with a perfect checklist at all. So it's kind of like, figure it out. Good luck. Here you go kind of deal. And all of that kind of translates very well to what Squared Away is. So being a military spouse is a lot like being able to handle everything.
And Michelle, and I'm kind of curious, did you have any experience with the military prior to marrying your husband, or was because some, like my wife was a military brat. So she grew up around, for part of her childhood up through her, junior high school and high school years, she was around the military. So becoming a military spouse, it still is a tremendous challenge. But at least she had some exposure to the military. But I kind of get a sense that maybe you didn't have that kind of exposure yourself. So that must have been a challenge in and of itself.
I did not. My uncle was the only person in my family that was in the military, whereas my husband, his entire family, like mom, dad, granddad, everybody was in the military. So I went into it blind completely, and just very what's the right word, eager to learn and not really knowing exactly what I was getting myself into.
It's a fair way of looking at it. I remember that experience from myself, because I've always had a healthy appreciation for the military, Michelle, but I remember the first time we lived on a base and suddenly the mission was everything, right? And it wasn't that the family wasn't first. I've always said that I don't think the military does that, but you kind of know your place within that realm, right?
Yes.
Of your spouse, if the person, the active duty person, they have to do their job, and there's nothing that can stop that. So yeah, I remember that kind of being a shock to my system as well, and then other things too. Of I remember the day I realized we had children while we served, and I remember realizing like, man, I'm really going to have to be home and take care of the kid. Like, and there was a role reversal there that I had to accept. So lots of different military spouses. Obviously every person's in a different position, but I find the ones that, like you said, are eager to learn, right? You have to go in there with kind of that open mindset and be part of the team. I don't know. I don't know how else to say that other than be part of the team, you know, and the military is a great team to be part of.
No, I agree that team player mentality, and just the Marine Corps says Semper Gumby all the time. So always be flexible.
Right.
So just going into it with, you know, there are no hard lines. There are always flexible lines, and it's definitely drawn in the sand. It was very much, you know, even the silly things was a learning process for me. Like, why are they saluting me at the gate? Like, what's happening here? Like, what do I do here? Do I just like high five them kind of deal? So, I mean, we've all had our fun, unique experiences, but it definitely took some getting used to, I will say.
Absolutely.
And 9 years in, I think I'm still getting adjusted to certain things.
Every day, Michelle will tell you, I was in for a little over 27 years, and I think every day is a learning process, even for us in uniform. You know what I mean? I don't think you ever stop adjusting, learning, and making changes. But so Michelle, what I'd like to kind of transition to now is, because another challenge that I think a spouse faces is, especially if he or she wants to do something other than just take care of the household, is how can you contribute in the workforce? And I know that can be a really significant challenge for a spouse. Now, you have kind of an interesting background where you have a significant experience as a personal assistant. You performed in that role for about 5 years, from 2010 to 2015. You managed a team of virtual assistants for a company called Zirtual for about 2 years. And I'd like you to kind of share what the role of a personal assistant is, and why you chose to pursue that profession, because obviously it led into other things that we'll talk about here in a minute. But I really find that fascinating.
So I kind of got started, honestly, by accident, being a virtual assistant or being a personal assistant. I actually, in 2010, I joined the Navy and went through Navy OCS for about 8 weeks. And then I was MPQ'd for an injury. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with my life at this point? And I had a family friend who gave me a job as a nanny in DC. And that kind of led to me becoming a personal assistant in DC. So one kind of led to another. And I found that I really enjoyed it because it was always a unique challenge. No day was ever the same. And I was always kind of learning something, and I was always tackling problems that I personally could handle and could literally put my hands on. And like I chased more than a few packages all over the DC area personally. So it was always very rewarding to know that I had personally put something together and handled it. So doing that in DC kind of led me to, okay, I have all this experience. I really had a get it done attitude for everything that I was doing. So when Sean and I PCS, or let me back up a minute. We got engaged when he winged in Corpus Christi, Texas. So I was living in DC, moved to Corpus Christi. I wasn't working. And then we decided, you know, I would take some time off before we moved to North Carolina. So I moved to North Carolina, started putting in all these applications, and I went into it with, I've got this. Like, this is going to be so easy. I've worked in DC. I've literally tackled everything that you could possibly imagine. Bring it on, Jacksonville. Let's do this. And then I started getting denied, like, to the point where I was applying to answer phones at a law firm and they wouldn't hire me. And I literally was like, wait, what? I'm not qualified to do this. And it just kind of took a toll on me. I was very frustrated. And I knew that it was because I was a military spouse, just because of the way the interviews were going. Like, oh, what brings you to Jacksonville, North Carolina? Not the scenery, my friend. Trust me. I grew up an hour away. It was definitely not the scenery. And then, you know, I would change the narrative a little bit. Oh, we moved for my husband's job. What does he do? Oh, got me there. He's an MV-22 pilot. cool another way for them to deny me. It would always go really well until they found out why I was there and what I was doing. So I really did find out, they would never admit it in a million years that it was because I was a military spouse, but it really took its toll on me because I knew I was qualified and I was literally just being judged because of what Sean's job was.
So I'm assuming they just didn't want to make a commitment to you because they didn't know how long you might be there. Is that kind of what you were sensing?
That's definitely what I was getting. It was more of I couldn't commit to them long term. How long are you guys going to be here? I have no idea. We're kind of at the needs of the Marine Corps. So it was always something.
Yeah, Michelle, I know what you're talking about, and I guess I've experienced it myself. And I can tell you right now, just from the short conversation we've had and where we're going in this conversation, that was absolutely their loss. It's funny because I'm an employer now too. I'm an entrepreneur as well. I actively look for military people because they have a higher understanding of teamwork and how to work and so forth and so on. So my attitude was always, man, if we get somebody for 2 months and they execute really well for 2 months, that's 2 months of execution that we just got. Now,
yes.
Right. And I do understand too that to be fair to employers also, there is costs of training someone, there is costs of bringing someone in. But that it's a balancing act, right? And
exactly,
and it's not meant to be a give all take all thing. Also, great organizations will have military type programs. Obviously, we'll talk about that too. They let them in. But here's what I want to tap on now, because I love it. You're very entrepreneurial, obviously, right? I'm the same way. Similar story. Worked in Manhattan, wasn't DC, although I know DC. By the way, people navigating those cities is not as easy as you think it is. I'll give you, New York's actually easier than DC because it's a grid. DC is very old school and how roads go different directions.
DC is special when it comes to navigating.
It's all over the place. But one of the things that I noticed early on in my spouse career, if you want to call it that, is suddenly I had an enormous amount of time, just an enormous amount of time to think, to do things. And I quickly realized that was a gift. If you're an entrepreneurial minded person. Right. I do want to say this for all spouses listening. If you have fallen into that role of taking care of the kids and you love that, that's awesome. There is no right or wrong role as a spouse. Right. But if you're a creative person that's high energy and likes to do stuff, when you're stuck with a ton of time, that can be very dangerous or very beneficial, depending on how your mindset works into it. And I remember at first it was shocking how much time I had. And I was like, man, I'm not doing well with this. And then it kind of clicked for me that you can use this time. People don't get time like this where, the military is taking care of us. They're paying for us. They're housing us. People don't get time like this where you can just be free and do whatever you want. And I think you executed on that. Like I said, you have a strong entrepreneurial spirit. So you founded the Michelle Penczak Executive Assisting in 2015, Saavy Spouses in 16, Squared Away in 17. So obviously you found some ways to use that time. Could you explain what prompted you to create these businesses? Tell us about the business as well. And then stories about, how you help spouses, but really from the day the idea sparked to today, bring us through that journey. Because I think that's an amazing thing that you were able to do and create and quickly too.
So all of them kind of tie into one another. It's finding something legitimate for military spouses to commit their time to that's going to give them extra money or a career. Right. So Michelle Penczak Executive Assistant was founded out of me losing my job at Zirtual completely overnight, and my clients coming with me and saying, yes, I want to work with you. Let's do this. So those are the awesome clients who personally work with me. Yeah. And I built that up to about 13 clients personally, because I'm crazy and a little bit insane. And
so these were 13 clients that you personally were assisting at the same time, Michelle?
Yes. I built, 5 of them came with me from Zirtual, and then I built up to 13 over time. So I took all of them with me to Hawaii when we moved in 2016. So I was working with them one-on-one. Trust me, everybody was not very demanding, so there was a balancing act there. But it worked really, really well, regardless of time zones. I was 100% sponsored by caffeine during that period, but but it worked. And I was still able to feel like I was contributing and doing something for me. And kind of right after we moved to Hawaii is when I founded Saavy Spouses, because I did have friends who were coming to me saying, hey, I found this remote job. Do you think it's legit? How can I tell if it's legitimate? You know, here's a side hustle. Like, is this legitimate? Do I pay somebody to work for them? Number one, you never pay somebody to work for them ever. So it was kind of me helping them vet their own ideas and then sharing it with military spouses, or everybody that was on our social media at the time, but I haven't been as active because I've been very engaged with Squared Away. So that was one piece that I was trying to help others kind of find something to do. And then in 2017, my co-founder, who was actually one of my clients at the time, Shane Mack, came to me and he said, hey, my company's growing. I need you to grow as well. And I was like, what? Like, I am one person and I have a 14-month-old. I don't know if you know what's going on over here. But he was like, no, just take a few days and think about it. So I came back and said, absolutely. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it with military spouses as the driving force behind this, because I knew if I could do it, any other military spouse could do it as well.
Right.
So explain to us how you kind of grew the company, Michelle, because, and I'd actually like to even go back to Zirtual, because there you probably you were working as a personal assistant, but at Zirtual, you now had a team of personal assistants that you were kind of leading and managing. So maybe you can share some of the experiences you gained there in how to lead and manage a team, because it sounds to me like you took that experience and that helped you to then build out and grow out Squared Away and leverage that experience that you gained at Zirtual, right?
Absolutely. I will say, I don't want to get in trouble, but I will 100% say that Zirtual gave me the tools and definitely showed me the right way and the wrong way to be a leader and to mentor others and help them and feel empowered to do the same things that I was doing. So I feel like I learned a lot on leadership and growth from them. So even though we parted ways and not such a great manner, I 100% will give them credit on kind of giving me the tools to grow myself. So I saw the right way and the wrong way to do things there. And I definitely wanted to take what I learned from them and kind of put it with my team and say, okay, this is how I would like to see us grow. And, you know, we always hear all the time, you know, organization is kind of like a triangle and a pyramid. Squared Away is very much a round table. So if something's not working, bring it to us immediately and let's work on this problem together. Don't let it fester. If you're feeling overwhelmed, let's figure out a way to mentor you and help you be a better assistant so that you are always feeling supported internally. Because my biggest thing was I never wanted my team to feel like they were burnt out or got to a point where they didn't want to do their jobs anymore. Rule number one, if you hate dreading your email every day, we need to have a conversation, because that means you're hating your job and you want to do something else.
That's a great point. If I can real quick, Hal.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I felt the same way. I had a job early on in our spousal years. And I think it's important you mentioned, I learned a lot from that job, but it was actually what I mean, I'm not tagging this onto what the company you said, but I learned what not to do at that company. And I remember I came to this realization at some point towards the end of that job, because we were PCS, and I was like, I don't think I want to work for anybody anymore. Like, I don't think I want to, you know, be under the kind of corporate thumb anymore. I think I can do it. And I remember that was the moment that I became an entrepreneur. It was in that thought of like, yeah, I'm just going to do it myself. But I want to bring up the point, Michelle, just for anybody thinking about being an entrepreneur, creating your own business. I always like to say you got to blame elegantly, right? Like, and you just did that. Like, you're thankful for everything they taught you and maybe didn't teach you, or the things that they did wrong that they taught you. You know, like I feel like I'm a good business owner, not just because of the good things that I learned, but really the things I saw along the way that were probably not good. So it's all shared experience and it all comes together. And I just that jived with me. Sorry, I wouldn't say that.
No, I appreciate it. No, I had some great mentors that kind of guided me along the way, and I'm extremely thankful for those. And I would definitely be remiss if I did not mention Zirtual, because I mean, they definitely gave me the stepping stones to get here. But yeah, it's been a wild ride to get here.
So, Michelle, what really fascinates me is here you were a singular personal assistant, and now you've grown it to, you said, I think I heard you say you have over 200 military spouses working four squared away in this space. Can you kind of talk to us about how you grew it from yourself to this organization that you have now? I think that would be fascinating for spouses, military members and spouses to hear that story.
Oh my goodness. I wish I could give a good 1, 2, 3 step, but it was honestly, supply and demand. The more people heard our story and were working with me and Kelsey, who was my very first assistant, and she's now our director of operations. As we saw the demand, we started adding assistants. So it's very much a teeter-totter. Definitely not business savvy in that regard, but we saw the supply and demand, and we've always kind of tried to keep it level. And we've kind of had a really great balancing act with our clients and our assistants. We have no shortage of each right now, knock on all the wood around you. But I think our story has really been the driving factor of what has been our success at Squared Away. And the more we've been able to tell that, and the more our assistants talk about how much they love working with us, and us being able to, just share with other companies, hey, we can support you, and this is what we can do, because military spouses just don't quit. Other people you might hire are going to cost 3 times more, and they're going to give up after 3 tries. Our assistants are going to try A through Z, and then at that point, they're probably going to fly and do it themselves just to make sure it gets done. And we're going to be a third of the cost.
While taking care of the kids.
While taking care of the kids and
while
grocery shopping.
While the husband and wife is deployed. Yeah.
Exactly.
Carrying them around. No, again, this all resonated with me. Sorry, Howie. I feel like this is like speaking to me for a change, right? One of these episodes. No, but I just totally understand where you're coming from. And like you said, it's one of those things of, I always talk on this show, Michelle, about how the military is the greatest team on the planet. I always talk about that. And that spreads out so many ways. It totally affects spouses as well, right? The most comfortable I've ever been in my life, like safety wise, was on a military base. I still say that to this day. And there is such a community that is built amongst everybody, active duty and spouses, that there's this communal understanding of like, we're a community together and we can do this together. So I think that when it comes to your business, it is very much that Simon Sinek, who you are, not what you do atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
Again, military active, we always talk about this too, Howie, active military, no active military. Well, spouses know spouses, right? They know what it's like to go to the commissary or the BX when your kid's sick, it's like, yeah, we know doing the paperwork, and we know the, you said something early in the episode, Michelle, not to jump around, but something I didn't realize. And again, look, being a male military spouse comes with its own challenges as well. One of them being, there's a little, like I said, there's a little bit of role reversal that you have to kind of be ready for. Something the women do every day, right? This isn't like a pat on the back thing or anything like that. But I remember my wife told me, and you said that you were the glue. I remember we were moving internationally for one of our PCSs, and she kind of turned to me on the plane. She was pregnant, and she said, you're like my rock with all this, right? Mm-hmm. And I never even thought about it that way. I never even thought about it that way. And she said that, and I really appreciated it, but I didn't realize actually till that moment, she really meant that. You know what I mean? Like that's what I was providing for her. And I didn't take it and get, big chested with it. I got like, wow, I really need to lean in on that role if she's saying that. Cause, she's out there doing this really important work. Your husband is too, obviously everybody is. And she's telling me that she can do that because of something that I'm doing. Man, that really meant a lot to me. And I know how you feel that way about your wife. Again, everyone I've spoken to in the military feels that way. But yeah, I love that you have brought spouses together to to create your own spouse force. We'll just call it that.
Yeah, I love that, the spouse force, because honestly, Squared Away has kind of, taken everything that honestly I wanted when I married Sean. It was, okay, what do I want in a career and to feel satisfied in what I'm doing every single day? Number one, I want a good paycheck and I want to feel secure in that. I want something where I don't have to start over at square one every time we PCS. And I want good people around me that, I'm going to have, Framily, friends and family built in one. And because my family and my friends at home are not going to be here to support me 24/7, but Squared Away kind of gives all three of those, because I have teammates at Squared Away that are, my emergency contact on my kids' forms, because they're the closest to me, and they know my kids and they're able to get them if God forbid they're an emergency. But those are the people that I would literally trust with my professional and my personal life. And that is something that is just so hard to come by as a military spouse, where you have that trusting relationship on both sides. And that's something that we've really worked hard to kind of keep building over time.
I got to dive into this, Howie, before you ask the next question, because Michelle, Howie knows this. I love what you're saying, because I've built my businesses the same way. All right. Where the people come first before the product. Right. And it's under that kind of idea that if the people working with me don't care, why would anybody outside of us care? Right. Like that. Exactly. I've always kind of just brought that. And again, the military kind of works in a similar way, if you think about it. So what I wanted to tap on is that I think it's funny for all the business owners out there that listen to this, because we do try and target businesses to educate them on how to deal with transitioning military or spouses. I always find it ironic that this kind of old school work mentality, and it's very almost militant in nature of how we have to run a business. And from the most militant place on earth, the military spawns this great avenue of teamwork, right, in understanding and community. And it goes to show you, really, there is a massive disconnect right now on how people treat each other, how we're supposed to do with our jobs. Again, it's been about, I think, 35 years where there was a shift, and you guys will understand where I'm going with this in a second. There was this shift in business where the bottom line became the only thing that mattered, more than people, more than anything, and money. And I hear stories from people that worked prior to that, and it's like, no, we cared about each other. We took care of each other's families at our job. And again, look, every period has the time period. Every period of time has the troubles of that period of time, right? But I was always reveling in this idea of, wow, a community-based workspace where people actually care about each other. And it was like a foreign concept to people. And you've created that. And I love that, because that's what businesses should be. You should want to take care of the person sitting next to you. It should not be about, let me step on you so I can get a better job title. Like in my companies, we don't even have job titles unless you need one for something. Right. Because we're not here for that. We're here for each other. Right. And growing up together. Mm-hmm. So I think you're just so far ahead in terms of how you built this business. Right. And I admire you for that, because we need more of that right now. And I think that with let's just hopefully the pandemic winding down, that's what I'll say. Right. We're recording this on November 16th, 2021.
Knock on wood.
I'll knock on all the wood, as you said. I think there's going to be a call for this type of atmosphere of people taking care of each other and understanding that like we need to be out for each other. So I love that you did that, and I had to say something about it because it's not happening enough. And of course, it's a military person that made it happen. I love that.
Well, thank you very much. I will say I know everybody asks me so much, like, Sean is deployed. You're CEO of a company. You have a 5-year-old and 2-year-old tornadoes literally like in your house all the time. And you have to do all the mom things. How do you do it with all your time? Like, how do you find the time? I think it's you work smart, not hard, or smart, not long. You don't have to put in the 60 hours a week to be productive with your team. It's just all about time blocking and finding that good productive time to make sure you do get things done. Because my husband will totally go head to head with me on this and say, oh no, I have to do 16-hour days to get all my work done. And I'm like, why? Are you actively working for 16 hours a day? Because I don't feel that you are exactly. So it's all a mindset shift in how you work to get things done.
Totally agree with that. I keep a very tight calendar. And how I know is this because I still am the primary caretaker for my kids. And I remember I showed my calendar to somebody one time and they thought I was crazy. And I was like, well, where's your calendar? And they said, well, I don't keep one. I just kind of do what I got to do. I'm like, I said, I think that's crazy. I think you're crazy. I don't know how you could do that. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Howie. I'll take up this whole.
Well, no, I think another thing that is interesting is, look, we've been, Lee, you've talked about a certain piece of the workplace shift. There's been another shift too, and it's been happening over the last 10, say 15 years, but clearly much more so in the past year, 2, 3, maybe even 4, that you don't necessarily have to be at a workplace location to do your job and do it effectively. And what I think is fascinating is that Michelle has leveraged this virtual workspace, right? Because you are a virtual assistant, a personal virtual assistant, which means, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're servicing clients that necessarily weren't in the same town, maybe not even in the same state, maybe not even in the same region of the country that you're in, but you could still get done what they needed you to do to a very high standard, which allowed, first of all, there was a level of trust between the client and you that you built up over a very short period of time to be successful. And then that allowed you to manage your time as you needed to take care of your family, to take care of your household, and still take care of your client. And I think it's fascinating that you've leveraged that capability to build a very successful business. And I think that's more the norm now, more so with the pandemic than it has been certainly in the last 18 to 24 months. And I just think that's fascinating that you've done that.
Yeah, for sure. It's squared away. I like to say we were remote before remote was cool. So teaching people, especially during the pandemic, how to work remotely and be effective at the same time has really been interesting, and something that I really didn't see us teaching people how to do or teaching our clients how to do. But honestly, it was very much a teaching role. Like, oh my gosh, how do I work from home with my kids? Because I feel like I need to lock myself in the closet to get quiet time for a phone call. 100% have done that. Totally normal to lock yourself in the closet for a phone call. But having our clients also learn how to time block. And a lot of what we do in formulating those relationships is, we have business owners who come into Squared Away that some of them don't know how to delegate. Like, It's very type A, no, I've got this, I'm going to handle this kind of situation. But teaching our clients how to delegate, because it very much is an art form, and having that trust with your assistant or whomever is going to be handling your tasks. And then also letting the assistant understand the person, like, how do you pull the most important information from your client? So it's very much a matchmaking process to see who's going to be the most effective for our clients. So it's been really interesting to kind of see the psychology between, working remotely and pairing the clients as well.
And Michelle, from your experience, how long does it take? It's an interesting concept you just kind of contextualized there. So how long does it take, are you finding, to create that level of trust between your virtual assistant and the client, and so that they're now met, because they have to be a team themselves, right? So like, how do you, first of all, how do you help train both the assistant and the client up to manage that relationship? And how long does it take, are you finding, before you really feel like it's a fruitful relationship and a trusted relationship between the assistant and the actual client?
So obviously building a relationship with someone takes time. So I've seen that the 3-month mark is really a tell of how effective that relationship is going. Because at the build up, at the start of a relationship, it's like any new relationship. It's getting to know how each person works, how they communicate effectively, accepting feedback on both sides, like, and how do I delegate to you? Like, what is the best way for us to work together? And just giving that feedback on both sides and having that open communication and looking at it as very much this is a partnership. This isn't a boss delegating to a subordinate. It's a partnership. So the assistant is able to hold the client's feet to the fire and say, okay, no, this is what we need to do. And this is how we need to work together. So on the assistant side, we work with them to ensure that, number one, they're being proactive. They're being overly communicative with their clients. So they're saying, hey, I saw this on your calendar. We need to move it. What are you thinking here? Getting on a weekly brain dump call and just saying, hey, what's living in your brain right now? Because I need to know so that I can help you prioritize it. And just being thoughtful and figuring out ways to add value to their clients. So if they're going on a trip, letting them know something as small as, hey, this Broadway show just opened. I know your wife loves Broadway plays. Maybe we could look into tickets for this. And just adding that extra value, because they are going to see, you know what, I can't live without Michelle because I can't plan a trip myself anymore after this. Or clients who are CEOs of startups who are going through fundraising rounds, which is absolutely crazy. And they've never done it before. And it's essentially like doing 2 full-time jobs if you're doing that. So the assistant is there to say, this is what we need to do. Here's the checklist, because myself and another venture capitalist put one together. But this is the checklist. This is what we need to do to make your life not so crazy for the next 12 to 16 weeks. So that's what we teach our assistants to do, is being proactive and add value. Those are the 2 things we work off of. On the client side of the house, we kind of have A and Z. We have the clients who've never worked with an assistant before. They're just overwhelmed and they know they need help. So that's when we let them know, okay, what are the top 3 things you want to give away immediately and you never want to see again, or you just want to know they're done? So we have them start with the top 3, and we kind of push them in the way of letting it be something that's low risk, low hanging fruit, something that can't be messed up if there were something that were to break, like if it were a calendar invite or something. So low hanging fruit, 3 things off your plate, very simple to start, and then grow from there. And then on the flip side, we have the clients who have worked with an assistant before, and they come with parameters and say, this is how I like to work. This is what I would love. And this is how I would like to delegate with my assistant. Sorry, I know I just threw all kinds of information.
No, I think this is very interesting. And so how do you recruit, Michelle? Like if you have, it sounds like you've had fairly significant growth. And so are you just have a pool of potential virtual assistants standing by that as a need comes up, you can turn to, or how do you recruit to keep so that you have the supply that meets the demand you're facing?
So, excuse me. So at any given day, we have about 10 applicants that are applying to Squared Away. We have a automated application process where they are completing tasks, and they have to meticulously meet those criteria. So if something is not correct on a task, they don't make it through our pipeline. So
it's almost like it's like you have almost like an evaluation process you're putting them through before you would even consider them linking them up with a client.
Exactly. And then we train we train a group of assistants about 3 weeks out of every month. So we're bringing on anywhere between 8 and 12 assistants every week. So 3 weeks out of the month.
Wow. That's significant.
So we have quite a large pool, and then our assistants, like we look and see, like for instance, if a client needs someone who is well versed in HubSpot, Zapier, something like that, we can pull from that team of assistants who have that experience.
So Michelle, let's talk about what the future looks like for you. What are you envisioning for yourself and for Squared Away in the future? What does that look like for you?
Oh my goodness. I would love to just continue to grow. And this time next year, I would love to see us double the size that we are now. Right now, I think we're at 210 total assistants. So I would love to see us at about 420.
You know, I'll say this too, for all the aspiring entrepreneurs out there. One of the things I'm sure you've heard, and I've heard this, is how lucky I was, or how lucky you were that the pandemic happened because you were needed, and you know, how lucky it is that you know, luck has very little to do with it. And I want you to prove that point right now. And that, look, I've always said this. If someone has a business that was needed during the pandemic, I feel very fortunate to be in that position. I also would trade it back in a heartbeat for the pandemic never to have happened. And I've never met anyone who hasn't said that, by the way. Nobody wanted this. What they don't see, you started in 2015. They don't see that 5 years, 6 years of buildup to the pandemic that prepared you to be in the position you were in during the pandemic. It wasn't luck. So much of business is timing. And I want to discuss this with you, Michelle, because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurial minds out there, especially in the spouse world, that might go, I'm just waiting for the right time. I'm just waiting for the right time. And they don't realize that there is not a right time. There's never a right time. You build the business for the right time so that when whatever that time is, could be a pandemic, it could be something completely different, you're in a position to succeed. My team was in a position to succeed during the pandemic because of 5 years of preparation and work, not the other way around. So can you give your advice to aspiring entrepreneurs, especially specifically spouses, that maybe are thinking about starting a business? What do they need to know from your point of view?
Oh my goodness. I don't think we have that much time. No, I'm just kidding.
You have 1 minute to answer the question. Go ahead. We can do everything. You can do that. No, go ahead. I'm teasing.
I would say if you have an idea and it's something that you're truly passionate about it, don't worry about the timing, because if there's a market for it and you are really just, it's itching in your gut to launch this, launch it.
Right.
Because there is not going to be a perfect time. There's not going to be a, Black Friday for your business to do amazingness. If you do it, it will, and are passionate about it, it will happen and it will be successful if you have the drive to make it successful. I will be 100% transparent. I never looked at timing for Squared Away. It was like, oh, I have to do this? Cool. Let's just go. Right. Let's do this now and see if it worked. And it did. And the idea caught on and it just started blossoming. And if I sat here and said it was easy, I would be lying to everybody's ear and face. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of, oh my God, what am I doing? Am I making the right decision? I'm literally just going with my gut and trying to be the best possible person I know how to be. It's not easy, but if it's truly worth it, let it out there, let it rip. And the right people will be there to support you along the way. I won't say lucky. I will say blessed in that I have some pretty amazing mentors that work with me every single day. I have an immaculate and fun co-founder who keeps me on my toes. But it's a journey. Just find your crew and let her rip, and you will definitely be successful.
No, I love that. And I love that you bring up the passion too, because that is a huge part of it. You feel that fire in your heart, or whatever metaphor you want to put there, that you have to do something, do it. Because here's the deal. Whatever you'll know this too, Michelle, whatever the first idea you have is, like the thing, like, that's what it's going to be. Rarely is that what it actually becomes by the time you bring it to the market, number one. And there's no perfect products. Like, it's almost impossible to bring a perfect product to the market. Like,
exactly.
You have to start somewhere, right?
And everybody's going to have an opinion on your product.
You know what you should do?
Everybody will have.
You know what you should do? I've heard that so many times.
Don't be a shooter. Do not be a shooter.
Right.
But no, everybody's going to have an opinion on your product. Go with your gut every single time. Go with your gut.
Right. You're going to learn either way. So before we get to the final question, Michelle, every episode I give our guests a book title. So if you were to write a book, I come up with a title for your book, and yours is actually pretty easy. Sometimes we have guests that are very monotone, and I got to really dig and think of something. But your title came in the intro before you even said a word on this episode, and it just works so nicely. Your book title is Saavy Spouses Getting Squared Away by Michelle Penczak, Virtual Assistant.
That's actually not bad.
I merged them all together. So I wrote Saavy Spouses Squared Away, Michelle Penczak, Virtual Assistant. Now I have all three of your businesses on your book title. There it is.
I love that. It's because I was going with something like Squared Away with lots of caffeine.
That's too. No, you could do Squared Away sponsored by, like you said, that was good too. Sponsored by caffeine. But but that's your book title. So listen, before we end, we do have this. Thank you. We have this last question that we ask everyone who comes on the show. So our parent company, Pivotal Moments Media, is on a mission to strengthen mental fitness worldwide. That's why we're here. We all struggle with mental fitness at times in varying degrees. And if you're willing to share, have you had any struggles with your mental fitness, or have you seen others struggle with it? And what do you do when you experience it? How do you manage it? What do you do to strengthen your mental fitness? How does this apply to you?
Oh my gosh, that is such a good question. I am such a huge fan of therapy. I have a therapist that I chat with once a week, and she is my favoriteest person on the planet besides my husband and children. But it's just a really great time to brain dump everything that's living in my brain as CEO, wife, mom, caffeinated human at this point. And I feel like I've had my release, and that I can, combat everything that I'm dealing with. And I don't feel judgment or like I have to have an answer for everybody. Right. So therapy, I'm a huge fan of. And also, I will say that I go on a walk every single day and listen to a podcast. Most of the time it's true crime, no judgment, please. But I go on a walk and I listen to a true crime podcast and just zone out and just have my 30 minutes of me time. And that has been doing worlds of good for my mental fitness, especially with a deployment and being the solo parent. So that's my plug.
I love it. I love that I mean this, okay? I love that you jumped right out with I'm a fan of therapy, right? And that you're not ashamed about it in any way, because there are so many people that look at that like it's something bad. And we talk about that a lot on this show. In fact, the common theme when we ask this question, Michelle, is that, you're not alone, and that there's other people out there that have been through it and are willing to help you. I think spouses probably conform to that a little bit more, because we're typically around each other more. But the idea is that you're not alone, and I love that you weren't even afraid to say that, and that's the way it should be, right? That is mental fitness. I take care of myself. I go for walks every night. I do that same thing. I'm usually playing heavy metal. It's a little bit of a different vibe, but like I escape it as well. And the thing is, we're not doing enough, really, as species, to take care of ourselves in that regard. And we say it every episode. We all know what physical fitness is. Everybody knows how to keep their body physically fit, whether they do it or not. But when it comes to mental fitness, we don't do that. In fact, we do the opposite. We push it away. So I applaud you. I really mean that. And Howie, I think it's the first guest we've had that said, "Oh no, I love therapy. I do it."
Before I honestly just started therapy about a little over a year ago, and before I did that, oh my gosh, I was literally still the person that was like, okay, deep breaths all the time, like go on my walk. And it was just, I didn't feel like I was getting enough of that release, and just therapy every Friday afternoon. Me and Amanda are having our time. And it's even my husband, he's like, wait, are you okay? Have you talked to Amanda this week? And I'm like, not yet. That's on my agenda.
Right.
So everybody has seen what a change I've had. So, I just can't say enough good things about it.
How long are your calls with her typically?
they should be an hour. Typically they go about an hour and 15.
Right. But I'm bringing that up because there's another note. An hour and 15 minutes a week has done wonders, you're saying, for you. That's not a lot of time.
I feel like I have better tips for being a more present mother.
Right.
I have tips for being a more present spouse and for being a more understanding sister, friend, and daughter in my personal relationships. So everybody has benefited from me having 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week with Amanda.
Listen, I love that, because if you don't have an hour and 15 minutes,
hour and 15 most weeks.
If you don't have that for yourself, and look, I know there's people listening say, I don't have that. Take a page out of Michelle's book, delegate, and find a way
it. Find you a good therapist.
Create that hour. And you know what the truth is, Michelle, I bet you that hour actually creates more time for you, really, at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Probably, if I were to look more into it, it definitely does.
Right.
I'm sure
It's a tough one to explain, but yeah, it's like, when you have peace of mind, it's amazing how things get done quicker and with less stress, and you feel like, oh, maybe I have an extra 10 minutes here today. But Michelle, I really loved this conversation. This was great. We needed to hit a home run with our first spouse, and I think we hit a grand slam. I'm not going to lie to you. There you go. Using Howie's lingo.
Well, and Michelle, I really want to thank you. I know it's been several months since I first reached out and contacted you, and I told you prior to the start of this, how much I was looking forward to having you on the show to kind of share about Squared Away. But I think your story is incredibly inspiring, and that's exactly what I hope it does for the military members and the spouses who choose to listen to our show, that they can be inspired by what you've built and what you're continuing to grow. And thank you for sharing your story. I think it was absolutely awesome.
Well, thank you again for having me. This has been so awesome, and I'm so honored to be the first military spouse. This is amazing.
Well, you're the first and you won't be the last, which is also awesome. But Michelle, before we let you go, where can people find more information? Where should they look for you if they want to reach out?
Yeah. So you can find more information on gosquaredaway.com. And if you are curious, have questions, anything like that, please feel free to reach out directly to me at michelle@gosquaredaway.com.
There you go. All the resources you need in half the time, right? That sounds good. There we go. So yeah, Michelle, thanks so much. That's going to do it for this episode. You've been listening to Life After the Military, which again is powered by Pivotal Moments Media, and you can learn more about the organization at pivotalmomentsmedia.com. We have a ton of inspirational content like this episode, educational content like this episode, or ways for you to donate towards mental fitness for all. So for Howie Cohen and Michelle Penczak, I'm Lee Elias. Thanks so much for joining us, and make sure to keep an eye out for more episodes soon wherever podcasts can be heard. Thanks again. We'll see you next time on Life After the Military. Take care, everybody.